Impression the game you get out of it, what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, God, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tommaso Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it hard.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Hello, and you're very welcome to the 323rd episode of Treaty Talk. It's myself, Tom Clancy, and I'm joined once again by Matt O'Callaghan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star newspapers. Matt, when we spoke last, we were hoping for one piece of silverware for Limerick football, and in the interim, we've had two. We have a National League Division 4, won at Croke Park in a dramatic and spectacular fashion by the Limerick senior footballers, and on Tuesday evening, the under-20s retained the Munster under-20B title. So, all in all, not a bad week in for I suppose the turn of March and April. We'll take
not
it.
At all, Tom. It's an excellent week, and that's why I'm bearing a permanent smile. Two win-tune football competitions, a national and a provincial in 4 days, has been unheard of in Limerick football, and it's a major boost for the county. And as you said, the victory on Saturday, the way it was ground out, the manner in which it was won, is so satisfying. And likewise last night in Mallow, because our boys were way too good for Waterford, you would have to say. Were it not for a run that Waterford got maybe for 10 minutes in the second half, it would have been a landslide and victory. And you'd have to say, with a 10 points winning margin, that Limerick weren't in the slightest bit flattered. It was what they deserved, and congratulations to the lads behind them. And we saw it at first hand right from the get-go this year when they played Tipperary in the first round. How dedicated, first of all, the players were, but Tom, how awfully dedicated altogether the management team were.
Yeah.
To do what's best for those boys and to get the best out of them. And it was payback for John O'Grady and his management team last night, because they have put an awful lot of work into it.
Yeah, and the reward, as well as the silverware last night, of course, is an All-Ireland semi-final to come next month, which is it's May, when they line out again. So we'll watch, we'll bring you up to speed on that when we know who the fixture is against, but it'll be Ulster opposition, we know at this point. Anyway, Matt, we'll come to those later in the piece in terms of a bit more greater look at those events, and indeed we've plenty, other items as well, ladies football, Kamogi, as we always cover here on Treaty Talk. So, but for now, we're going to bring in our guest, and a man who I'm sure is a familiar face and indeed a name to many across the county, both young and old, and different generations have come across this man. I came across him in Ballybrown National School in the mid-2000s. Joe Lyons, the man, one half of the green and white, I suppose I could put it. Joe, you're very welcome to Treaty Talk. How are you?
Thanks very much, Tom. Great to
very
catch
welcome,
up.
Joe. Thanks for coming on, Joe.
Great to see you, Matt. Thank you.
Delighted to have you.
Yeah, I said one half of the green and white. I suppose people, Joe, may recognise your face as well as someone behind the numerous competitions in the coming months called the school competitions here domestically in Limerick, and might have seen your name as well attached to a book or two down the year as well. So you've been across plenty of things, and of course the primary game as well. People may know you as one of the chief organisers in that as well. So you've spread yourself across various different angles of the Gaelic Association down the years.
I certainly have. I have my finger in a lot of pies now, mainly to do with the primary schools that were coming a month ago. I've been involved for the last 40 years or more, and enjoying every minute of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I suppose we can touch on many of those topics now in the next little while. The primary game, I suppose, is one that's coming up very soon. I suppose it's starting this weekend, and people will know the primary game as the halftime games for the Munster Championship games. And I suppose you've seen, and I follow your account on Twitter, the Green and White. We've seen so many of the great Limerick hurlers, footballers, the Kamogi players, ladies footballers. We've seen them don the colours of Limerick in that, and we've seen many great club players as well, and great stakeholders in the game. That's where they started. That's where it all kind of began for them, really, isn't it?
That's where it all starts. You're right there, Tom. In coming to Munster and Limerick, Tom, we're very lucky that we're the only county really that has a structure where we go from schools to division and then on to county. That we have interdivisional competitions: the Mackey Cup, the Sastry Cup, the Neville Cup for Kamogi, and the Lacan Shield for girls. So there's a kind of a ladder there that the children who are spotted playing for their club, for their school, they get picked for their divisional team. Yesterday we had the Mackey Cup in Rathkeil. The 4 divisions contested it, and actually Limerick City won it. They won it. They defeated West Limerick in the final 3-2 to 8 points. Gas Limerick only got 5 scores, the City did, and the West got 8 scores. So, West have been knocking on the door for a number of years, but in actual fact, they haven't won it since 2009. They've been in so many finals and they've been so close. Last year they were beaten by a solitary point by the South. In fact, the captain in 2009 was Killian Hannon, who was a younger brother of Declan and Jody. Declan captained the West to win it in 2005. But then, as we said, the children that excel in the primary game are in the Mackey Cup or the Sarsfield Cup or the Neville or the Larkin. They get to play in the primary game. And the primary game is a fantastic initiative, and you have to hand it to the Munster Council. It's been running since 1996, and there's a primary game at every single Munster Championship senior match. So in actual fact, 484 children will get to play in the primary game this summer. And that's spring and summer. That's amazing. I was speaking last night to a fellow from Wexford, and he told me they have exhibition matches in Leinster, but only at a game here and there. They don't have them at all the games. And in Munster, the Munster Council, they actually present the children with a jersey, socks and shorts. And the jersey is a bespoke one. You can't buy it in the shop, especially made for the primary game. So the children absolutely treasure that jersey.
Yeah.
So we're in action on Saturday night. And because of football, you don't have a round robin. So it could happen this year that Limerick or Cork will only have one match in the Munster Championship in football. So as a result, both boys and girls get to play on Saturday night. So we have 2 matches, a boys team and a girls team, 44 children playing. Great occasion. They'll be doing a guard of honour for the senior team. They'll be playing at half-time. They'll get their photo taken on the bench as soon as the senior teams jump up from the bench. It's all part of the big occasion and fantastic experience.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I think you said the mid-90s there. It's been going to the 96, you said there?
96. Funny enough, I used to be principal in Ballybrown, and Seamus Barry, who was the current principal, he played in the Mackey Cup that year in 96. And the Andrew O'Shaughnessy played as well that year. So there was a good team. Garrett Hagney, who went on to win 3 All-Irelands with Portumna and played minor for Limerick. So that was a very first year. But when it started, Limerick played Clare in 96, played Cork in the first round down in Cork. They played Clare in the famous day when Kieran Carey scored his point, and then they played Tipperary in the Munster final. And the same 11 of children went on to play from one game to the next, on to the next. Nowadays, if in the Munster Championship, Limerick will play 4 games. 2 of them in primary will be Kamogi and 2 of them will be hurling, but it'll be 2 different teams that will play, so that you get as many children as possible to get an opportunity. Yeah,
it's superb. Yeah, I suppose it's very hard to quantify, Joe, what that does for those youngsters. You mentioned Andrew O'Shaughnessy there.
That's
but
right.
I suppose you're trying to, whoever it is, whether it's Andrew or anyone else, you're trying to foster their interest in Gaelic games. You're trying to show them the big fields, the big stadiums, big occasions. And I suppose you can never quantify the power that does for a youngster's development, not only in sport, but obviously in life. And I suppose you probably still do meet, you mentioned the principal of Ballyround now, of course, but you probably do still meet these people in your passing, and it's a memorable day. It's a day that they'll always carry because it's their first day, even if they go on to win All Irelands like Declan Hannon as captain. It's their first day on the big stage, so to speak.
It certainly is, and you'll find nearly all of them still have the jersey, and most of them try to fit into it. They're absolutely amazing. I remember being on holidays in Florence a number of years ago, and I was sitting having a cup of coffee, and a girl passed by wearing a Limerick primary game jersey. And no, it was a long time since she talked out in the primary game, but they just treasure this jersey. And what happens as well is they make friends. The best children from the different divisions get to meet each other, and then they go on. Then they're playing in the academy and so on. But a great number. Actually, it was interesting. Rena Cockery and a number of the great Cork football and Kamogi teams would tell Bridge Cockery and Rena Buckley. That's the girl now. She told me that the first time they met was when they were picked in the primary game team. And I always think it's great to see Paul Kinnerk. Paul Kinnerk played in the primary game team and football as a cornerback. And he was absolute textbook cornerback. He marked his man. He never took his eye off the ball. He knew exactly what he had to do. And you could see he had fierce potential. And Conor Murray, who just stepped down recently, Conor played in the primary game in 2002 against Kerry. He was in the same team as Owen Joy from Abbeyfield, who, as you know, went on and played for Limerick, and Cormac Joyce Power, who went on and played for Limerick as well. So Conor, as I said, his first big jersey, his first big occasion was playing the primary game football.
Superb, yeah. Matt?
You had a winning captain from Newcastle West who went on to win a Leinster Senior Cup medal with
we did indeed, you're right. You did right. Quaylan Dooley was the man, that's right. He certainly did. And he was the place kicker for Terranure, wasn't he? And he was an all-rounder now. Yeah. It is great to see those fellas coming through. And look, the girls as well. I was speaking to Caoimhe Costello lately. Caoimhe Costello played in the Neville Cup with the West, and she played in the primary game. And so did Rebecca DeLee and Karen O'Leary, and who also played in the primary game in Kamogi was the girl from Newcastle West who plays soccer for Ireland. O'Riordan is her.
Claire O'Riordan, yeah.
Claire O'Riordan, that's exactly it. Yeah. So it's and you know they make friends, they never forget it, but it also gives them that bit of a boost. They get to like the big occasion, and it's a great opportunity, wonderful. Even this week I was putting something up on Twitter about the Mackey Cup. Shane O'Brien was the captain in 2017 of South Limerick. And, 8 years on, he'd probably be full forward for Limerick, It's great. Adam English, Aidan O'Connor, all those fellas. They all came through the Cup of the Munster and the Mackey Cup and the Sarsfield and so on.
Matt?
Joe, obviously the primary school games is the highlight for all of them, for all pupils to aspire to. But there's a whole myriad of competitions going on the whole year round, from indoor to 7-a-side. The program, Joe, that you have put together and devised and meticulously ran every year is simply phenomenal.
It is. I couldn't begin to quantify how many children actually get to play. But yesterday we had the Mackey Cup back in Newcastle West, where we had 84 children involved. Tomorrow we have the Etna Neville Cup in Rathkeale, and Etna herself is going to be there to present it. And we'll have the best 84 girls in primary school Kamogi playing. And last week we had the indoor hurling, as you said, which is for boys in 4th class and down. The week before we had the indoor Kamogi, which is for girls in 5th class. And next week we have the INTO Mini 7s in both hurling and in Kamogi. So, and then we go back to the schools competitions that are going on in each of the 4 divisions. And then the winners in the top grade in each division will go on to play in the Limerick Leader Cup in hurling and the Green and White Shield in Kamogi. So, and I suppose what I would say is that when I got involved in Cumann na mBunscol back in the very early 1980s, 81 or 82, we had boys football every year starting in September and was finished by Halloween. And we had hurling for boys from Easter to the summer. Now every competition we have a corresponding girls competition. So we have boys football, girls football, hurling and Kamogi, indoor hurling, indoor Kamogi, interdivisional hurling and Kamogi. But I suppose the other thing I'd say is that all of this starts from the people who set the whole wheel in motion. And back in West Limerick in 1974, there were 2 men that deserve enormous credit. both have passed away since. One passed away only last year, Michael O'Donoghue from Newcastle West. Yeah. And Mike was the first secretary of the West Limerick Coming to Munskell. And Noel Liston from Killockdean, who taught in Rathkeil, he was the first chairman. And they started the ball rolling. And then afterwards, we founded a county primary schools board. Bill Reedy from the Piershig was the first chairman. And with people willing to put in the effort. And the great thing is that no matter how big or small the school you're in, you get a chance to wear your school jersey. And it might be the only time that some people will ever get to tug out. But we have competitions for 2 teacher schools up to the biggest, the competitions for the biggest urban schools, you know. But it's you could say it's virtually 52 weeks of the year now.
Joe, you know, spearheaded by yourself, like, because let's face it, you are the face of Coming to Munskell and primary school games. Like, the manner in which the teachers have been mobilised and motivated is simply phenomenal as well.
It's great. There's huge enthusiasm among the teachers, and what really pleased me yesterday was I was at the Mackey Cup. The number of people involved in training divisional teams that I hadn't seen doing that before. That was great to know there are younger people coming on board and willing to give it their all. And I suppose what's also great to see is that you have the likes of Nicky Quaid, who's a teacher in Patrick's Well. He trains their Kamogi team. You have David Reedy is in Brewery. You have, Shawnee Tobin from Ballysteen School, former Limerick hurler. He was there with the West Limerick team. Great to have people with that kind of expertise.
Richie English is involved now as well, isn't he?
Of course. Richie was with the South team yesterday. In fact, we were joking with Richie because Richie started off teaching in Rahina, so he was training the West team. Then he moved to Oola School and he was involved with the East team. And yesterday he was with Knockany. So the city will be the last stop now for him. He was with South yesterday anyway. He was indeed.
Very good.
It's great to see people like that involved. And like I said, Cueva Costello will be involved with the West Limerick team now tomorrow in the Neville Cup. And involved with the East Limerick team is a woman called Laura Fennelly, who captained Limerick Camogie team last year. She's a Kilkenny woman.
I know Laura, yeah. She captained the Limerick Camogie. She's a Kilkenny native, actually, Laura.
She certainly is.
She's with the East Camogie, is
it? She's teaching Nicker School outside Palace Green. Yeah. So it's great to have people like that and get the children enthused and involved, you know.
Yeah. You see, these are their role models, but when they're in the classroom and when they're organising these competitions, they become even greater role models.
They do. They certainly do. You're dead right. They do. And it's great to see the number of teachers that are involved. And what I often feel is that an awful lot of the teachers that are involved, they may be involved with their school as well. For instance, when Limerick beat Tipperary in the under-20 match last week, Alan Kelly, who teaches Mahuna School, and Stephen Walsh, who teaches in Tipperary Town now, but he used to be in Kilbehenny. They were both selectors with the Limerick under-20s. And Ger Kelleher is principal in St. Patrick's in Brewery. Ger is a selector with the Limerick Minors. Great to see these people with that kind of expertise involved. But an awful lot of teachers may not be involved with the club at all, but they look after a school team year in, year out, and they give the kids the opportunity to play, you know, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
superb. Yeah, you mentioned the different formats there, Joe, and you had me thinking. I remember playing that INTO sevens when I was in 6th class in Ballyrowan. It was in Mungret in an absolute mudbath. I don't know how it was allowed to be played the same day, but I can tell you, I don't even know who won it. We didn't win it anyway, but I can categorically tell you it's one of my favourite memories of playing hurling. The fact, first of all, in our class was a very competitive bunch of boys, and the fact that I got picked of maybe the 9 or 10 that got to hop over the road to Mungret was a place of pride. Like, but even then, I know.
Tom.
Well, I did well. Like, you know, I was probably the last time I was ever picked properly for anything. But the Ola Cup, then, Joe, as we discussed a couple of years ago, Cian Lynch kind of ruined my experience with the Gaelic grounds there. Like, but I mean, I've told that story to loads of people. But Cian Lynch playing in the Ola Cup, which is kind of a 6th class competition, I think he was 4th class, 10-year-olds, and he scored 4 goals. Now we won't mention who the goalkeeper was, but like. As far as I can say, that's the first piece of silverware Cian Lynch would have won. Now I know it's not all about winning. We should say that too, but it probably lit a fire under him. Not that maybe there one needed to be lit anyway, but you know, like look at what he's done. 2-time hurler of the year, all the all stars, like it's phenomenal when you see these guys at the ground level almost, if you like, and where they go to. It's incredible, you know.
It is great, and I would say Aaron Gallan was probably on that team as well, was he?
I think on the list he didn't. I think because he was so young, he probably didn't make the cut. Like, you know, Cian having the January birthday probably. Probably fell that way. Like, but you know, it's great to see. We mentioned it. You mentioned it there, I think, or one of us mentioned at the start there. The green and white. Obviously, you're one half of that. Kieran Crowe, being another. Still very much in circulation and publication, still getting around to the schools that you mentioned to me there a minute ago, dropping it down to Ballybrown. It's a production that, again, it's while everyone you want everyone to play, but it's also a way of kind of keeping the interest in Gaelic games for youngsters as well, and showing them what's going on around the place.
It's brilliant. Well, it's been going since 1996, and we're very proud of the fact that Limerick is the only county that has a magazine. Other counties tried it and it didn't work out, or they did it for an issue or two and it fizzled out. But when we started the magazine, the idea was that children could read about their heroes, but they could also read about themselves. And children love to pick up the magazine and say, oh, there's our school, or say, oh, there's Patrick's Well, or there's Ula School, or whatever it was, or there's that team we played last week, and that they recognise their friends and so on in it. So we're very lucky. We're especially fortunate the Limerick County Board to have given it their backing. So the County Board pay for the printing cost of the magazine, and then each club gives a subscription, and then every club buys a certain batch of magazines, and then they're given out to the schools. And now, what I would love would if every family in every school in Limerick could get a copy of the green and white. But that's a lot of families. But we try to get it as many as we possibly can. But it's something children love. And the funny thing was, I had a request today from a mother of a well-known player to say that she has every copy of the green and white since it came out in 96.
One
of her grandchildren had torn up one copy. And so she gave me the date that she reckoned it was the 25th issue. And she said she'd take a photo of the inside of it. And if I could give her a copy to fill up the collection again, she'd be delighted. So it's great that people keep those. And what we find is that even though their children are gone from primary school, parents still love to get a copy of the magazine, you know. But the kids love it. And, you know, we find that they love to get their photo in it. And we have a feature in it. And it was Kieran's idea that people would bring the green and white with them on holidays. And people bring no matter where they go. One of the best ones was a teacher in Ballybrown. And he brought the green and white on his honeymoon. He went to Antarctica, and there was a photo of him surrounded by penguins in Antarctica with the green and white. So it was
right. Even the penguins are reading the green and white, is what you're telling me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But and as I said, Kieran has been involved with me, and we're now working on, even though the new issue is only being distributed to schools this week. That was issue 83. We're working on issue 84. As of today, I got some more material in for it. So it is actually the biggest problem we have now is what do we leave out? Because as Matt was saying, we have so many activities that we want to cover. And you have East, West, South and City. And then you have the interdivisional competitions. And now we have the primary game coming up. And then you have articles and interviews with the players themselves. And you want to cover, for instance, like the Limerick footballers. We'll definitely have to cover that in the next issue. You'll want to cover the Limerick Kamogi players. You want to do a bit about girls' football. You don't want to think that Limerick is just hurling and that it all stops with the hurling team, you know. So, as I said, we've often gone to 64 pages.
Right. But isn't it a great thing that you've to be cutting out stuff rather than looking for it, you know?
It certainly is.
Joe, your other publication in recent times, 50 Bliain Foss, the book again, I suppose looking back on Gaelic games in primary schools for obviously 50 years, as the title suggests, you know. How has that been received around I think it's you're trying to reach broader than Limerick obviously with this one, but how has that gone down around the place?
It's been received very well, I have to say. The whole idea was that Common Munskol as a national body was founded in 1971, and we wanted to bring out something in 2021 to cover the first 50 years, but COVID came along. You couldn't travel around the country to meet people. You know, places were closed down and so on. So it actually didn't come out until 2023. But we produced a book, Kieran and I'm sure Kieran was cursing me when I said, I've got an idea for a book now. And then suddenly we're going to do a chapter in each of the 32 counties, a chapter in each of the provinces, a chapter on the mini sevens, a chapter on the Cornmarket Awards, a chapter on the National Committee, and so on and so forth. But we stopped anyway at 834 pages, and we were very lucky. I got a good hearing from the Minister of Education, and I told her about the value of the Gaelic games to the whole culture of the school. And the Department of Education delivered the book to every single primary school in the 26 counties. So we were delighted with that every school has a copy in their library, and people can read about it. The other thing about it was that we got amazing cooperation from players, well-known players, when you contact them and say, have you any memories of playing in primary school? The first fellow I contacted was Shane Horgan, the famous rugby player and pundit. And I contacted him, and he was back to me 10 minutes later. And he told me he played in the mini sevens in Croke Park on the day of the All-Ireland final in 1991 between Meath and Down. And he was terrified that he'd be given a Down jersey to wear, but he was given a Meath jersey, which was grand. And he still has it and loved it. And so many players who came back with great memories of their days playing in primary school. As I said, now the Breach Corkeries and all these, the Adam English, Barry Murphy said that he started off in the convent in Doon, but everybody looked forward to going up to the boys' school because Brother Dormer did hurling 3 times a day. And
only 3 times.
Stuart was only 3 times.
Brilliant. Yeah, so they had the patch well worn there in terms of what was to come.
They did.
I suppose
just mentioning Brother James there, I suppose it's only fair that we should acknowledge the role that he plays.
Without a shadow of a doubt, he is.
Common school activities.
Exactly. He was on the phone just before I logged on here, and he said he'd ring me back afterwards because we have Kamogi tomorrow and we have mini sevens next week and we have primary game on Saturday, and he'll be at all of them, and he never misses anything. And he's as enthusiastic now as he was over 30 years ago when I first got to know him. And he was an officer of Common Munskell in Limerick City, or the Limerick Primary Schools Board, in the 1970s. And then he went to Waterford, and he was principal in Lismore. And by the time he left Lismore, Dan Shanahan and Dave Bennett and these fellas were playing for Waterford. And he came back to Limerick, then he went to Doon, and he won God knows how many Leader Cups and so on. And Adam English and Barry Murphy and Pat Ryan Simon and all these fellas, Dinny Maloney, all came through his hands. So Limerick Hurling owes him an enormous debt, I have to say.
Yep, absolutely. And his enthusiasm, and I was speaking with him last Friday evening in the Gaelic grounds, it hasn't dimmed one iota.
Not one bit. And the interesting thing about doing the Common Munskell book was that I came across in the course of the research an article in the Irish Times from way back about 15 years ago, and it was where they interviewed famous sporting people about how they started in sport. And Billy Walsh, who trained the Irish boxers to win all these medals and is now high performance director for US boxing, Billy Walsh said, when I was going to school in Wexford town, a young Christian brother came to the town and he got us out playing everything, including boxing, he said. And he said, we were playing football, we were playing hurling, we were playing everything. And he said, nobody could avoid playing sport. And he said, that's where my love of games played from. And Billy Walsh went on and played minor for Wexford afterwards. So Brother Dormer has a lot of fellas that he set them on the road to glory.
Absolutely. Joe, put modesty aside for 1 minute. The green and white is well and truly acknowledged in County Limerick for what you do and the great work that you do. But it has been acknowledged well beyond County Limerick through the Cornmarket Awards. It
has. We have won many Cornmarket Awards for best publication. And you know what? It's always a great old boost when you do go up against publications from other counties. Some counties might bring out a history of primary schools games in their county and so on. And the odd county, Cork, started for a few years. They had a magazine called Rebel Óige, and we found it very hard to beat them, but we finally did. And they don't have it anymore now anyway. So it's always nice to get a bit of recognition. And it's also great that the backing of the county board is great. And then we also are very grateful to Declan Considine, who's a Limerick man, who's the graphic designer, and TJ Ryan and the team out in Cube Print then, who print it, and sure, they have a great interest in it, you know.
Yeah. So it's an all-county effort.
From yourself personally, like you've spearheaded it, the Common Bunskull in Limerick, but you've gone on to spearhead it at national level as well.
I did. I was on the national committee for the last 10 years, and I finished up a 4-year term as chairman there on the 8th of March. So you know what? It was great to be involved in things like the mini sevens in Croke Park, and going into Croke Park occasionally looking for a bit of support from the coaching games and so on, people in Croke Park. So it was great, and I enjoyed it. It's great to hear how they do things in other counties, you know. I always take the example that I discovered that in Offaly, they only give 2 points for a goal in Common Munskell. So that's
all right.
Because
they encourage point taking.
Fellas didn't want to play in goals if there were a lot of goals went in against them. So they said there's only 2 points for a goal. So it was encourage fellas to shoot for points. And you know what? Maybe it's beginning to work out. But it's just, you meet so many people throughout the country who are absolutely passionate about Gaelic games, you know. One man that I remember meeting, and I had fierce time for him, is a man, he passed away last year or the year before, Joe Dunphy. He was principal in Ballyhale National School. And he had Henry Shefflin, Cha, Fitzpatrick, the Fennellys, all these people. And, you know, he just came into Ballyhale from Oldingford, Thomastown, I think it was. And, you know, he just had such interest and brought them all up through a small village, and they went on to glory, and they'd all make a point of thanking him and remembering him, you know. And there's a Joe Dunphy in every single county in Ireland, without a shadow of a doubt, and several of them.
Yeah, there absolutely is. So what I'm after learning plenty there now, but you're after telling me now that Offaly were the original 2-pointers before Jim Gavin came up with it. You know?
But it was under the bar instead of over the bar, though, Tom.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's still a 2-pointer, you know.
still a 2-pointer, right?
Very good.
And it was great. I actually met. We Common Munskell. We embarked on a new venture this year, which was a Common Munskell sports quiz. And we held one in every county in Ireland. St. Paul's and Doyle won the Limerick heat of it, and they went on to the All Ireland final. It was a team from Donegal won it out, but it was held in Tullamore, and a couple of the Offaly players came in, including Dan Ravenhill and Dan Byrne. And Dan Ravenhill had played in the mini sevens in Croke Park, and they were as enthusiastic about the matches they played in primary school as any game they played in Croke Park. And I suppose I'll finish up by saying, on that note, I remember meeting John Hayes, the famous rugby prop forward, one day, and he played with Cappamore School. And I remember presenting him with a cup back in about 1985. And he said to me that day that they beat Pallasgreen, Nicker School, in the final back in 1985. He said it was the first medal he ever won in sport. And he said, secondly, I can remember it as clearly as any of the Heineken Cup wins we won. So that was a wonderful thing to hear, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic memories. And you've mentioned so many names there, and I'm sure there's hundreds more rattling around in that head of yours. we could go on for hours. Listen, Joe, thanks very much for your time. We do appreciate it. And I suppose every success to yourself and Kieran with your future endeavours with the Green and White and any other, I suppose, future publications. If you get any more brainwaves for a book or two, we'll fully endorse them. So brilliant, Joe. Thanks for your time. We'll chat to you soon.
Thanks for all your help as well.
Thanks very much, Joe. We could have had this kind of conversation could go on for hours. It was most interesting, and thanks so much for joining us on 3 o'clock.
Thank you. Good luck. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, that's long ago to Joe. Yeah, brilliant, Matt, and I suppose trip down memory lane as much as anything as well with some of the names there. You know,
it's absolutely fantastic. But the man's dedication to the publication and to the organisation of Common Munskell is second to none. You know, you know, he's been acknowledged by his peers. You know, becoming national chairman of Common Munskell for 4 years, and he led from the front because I was following it very closely. And you can see the number of times he was modest. He didn't say the number of times that the Green and White has won the Corn Market Awards, but it's numerous.
Yeah, it is.
I honestly think if he was pressed, he may not be able to say for certain it's so often.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
like,
I remember. Yeah.
Himself and Kieran Crowe are doing an excellent job in the green and white, and himself and everybody that's involved in coming to Munskull. And I suppose we have, it's only right to acknowledge the role of the teachers, and like Joe as a leader has mobilised them, and we have fantastic structures. I remember back in the day, like Tom, before back 30 years ago, when we'd no structures at all, and there were structures in other counties, and we were envying them.
Yeah,
I think our structures are second to none because they're across the 4 codes, and like we all see them on primary school days when the big matches are in Limerick and Thurles. But behind it, there's a whole myriad of competitions the whole year round. It's absolutely fantastic. As I said, for the 4 codes, and that they treat them equally, which is it's absolutely simply fantastic, Tom.
Yeah, it is. And I do just that finally to wrap up the green and white. I remember when I was in maybe 3rd and 4th class when that used to come in. I suppose it's quarterly nearly, or you might get maybe 3 editions.
3 times a year.
3 times a year, yeah. So you get 3 editions during the school year, maybe one at the start, one kind of in the turn of the year, and maybe one towards the end. And like, you'd be quickly flicking through it to try and see did our picture make it, or if we were in some final or a semi-final, who's in it and who's this fella, and it's phenomenal. Like, and I suppose the great thing about that magazine, he mentioned that the mother of a player, they didn't name who it was, but like when you actually look back on it after when it ages a bit, you look back on it and you say, oh sure, there's Adam English and there's Cian Lynch and there's Declan Hannon, etc. And like it's phenomenal, like to see what becomes of these players, and I suppose they had to start somewhere. And I think if anyone isn't familiar with the page on Twitter, they could flick on there to the green and white page and look through the photos. Like the Declan Hannon one has been shared so many times, and every time we have to think, oh, there he is, like with the cup, like, and not the first time he captained the team to glory, like it was, or probably was the first time, but not the last, I should say, that he had such success. Like it's phenomenal, yeah. So we tip our hats to the lads for their contributions.
Yeah, Tom, you've made a very, 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 very valid point there about it. If you look back in past editions, and the passage of time crystallizes what the great work that is being done, and the message that they are bringing to the schools and to the people. It's a fantastic production.
Yeah, it is, sure is. Okay, well, thanks a million to Joe, and I know Kieran couldn't join us as well, but he's certainly the other half of that dynamic duo. Okay, Matt, I suppose back to matters arising from the last few days of Gaelic games in terms of Limerick. We better jump straight to the football and Croke Park, and they say goals win games, Matt. It's sometimes as simple as that. Limerick got 3 of them, Wexford got none, and the National Football League Division 4 title is back with Limerick. A 4th time, I think we've won this crown, 11, 13, 2020 and 2025. Am I correct? I hope I am.
You're absolute. 2010, 2013, 2020,
that was it. Yeah.
2025. But before we go on, my old sparring partner, congratulations, Bob Giles.
Oh yes, yeah. Anyone that's a long time listener will know that Matt and Bob have a bit of a ding dong there last year over predictions and stuff, wasn't it? So
yeah. And yeah. Bob, I'll be back with the predictions, and you will be back criticizing me when I'm wrong.
That's it. You'll be back trying to yeah. I know, brilliant.
Yeah, look, it was absolutely fantastic, and talk of Childs, like Tom Childs was involved in all 3 goals. I think it was Tom's best performance ever in a green jersey, and what a stage to pick, and what a day to pick. But if you reflect on it, Tom, and look at the league campaign in its totality: 7 games, win 4, draw 2, lose 1. Ironically, to the team that you were meeting in the final. But if you were there the same day, I think, Tom, that Wexford won in Mick Neville Park.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, and we were saying like that for 60 minutes, Limerick were well there, and it was just that Wexford kicked 4 or 5 points in the last 10 minutes, And that was essentially the difference. And Limerick went in a good place going into the final. They went in as underdogs. They had to be underdogs. Wexford were the only team in the entire 4 divisions that hadn't lost a football match. They had a 100% record. I think they were the only team. They were the team in the entire 4 divisions with the lowest score against.
That's correct, I think, as well. Yeah. I think you're spot on with all of that. Yeah.
All the metrics were in favour of Wexford, and Limerick, to a certain degree, came in under the radar, but I remember talking to Jimmy Lee after the Wexford game. You were talking to him as well with me, and we put the point to him that it was 5 wins or bust, and at that stage we were just after hitting the 17 without a win dial, but they really, really got down and knuckled down to it, and you see, winning becomes a habit, but losing becomes a greater habit, if you know what I'm saying. And Jimmy inherited a situation possibly not in ideal circumstances, and we had to exercise the demons of last year, starting out this year, and then he would be inclined to think gee, Ducks are going to drown in me now. When Longford kicked that late point and Longford to share the spoils.
Yeah, late 2-pointer and the first day of the 2-pointer was
share the spoils.
Yeah.
And he was possibly saying to himself, this is going to be a never-ending cycle, and then that game with Wexford, but it all changed in London. And Tom, London was a difficult assignment because Wicklow had been in London just before Limerick and had lost there.
And London actually won the games either side of that. London beat Tipperary in Thurles, I think, in the following round, and obviously you mentioned there had a great win over Wicklow. Ironically, that victory over Wicklow probably meant when Limerick went to Wicklow that it was okay to draw, if you know what I mean. So London were no shrinking violets on the day, and very noticeable now. I know we weren't in London, we didn't see the match, but certainly if you follow the scoring and the trajectory of these games, Limerick finished very strongly in London, they finished very strongly in Carlow, they finished very strongly against Tip, and they finished very strongly against both Wicklow and Waterford to finish it out. Yeah, extremely strongly in all those games.
And it was a different type of strong finish in Croke Park last Saturday.
Yeah.
It was
more defending done. Yeah.
It was a backs to the wall strong finish. And but by God, how they held their shape, how they held their discipline, was absolutely fantastic. And full credit to Jimmy and his management team. They've done a great job with him. They have. We as a county are immensely proud of them. And the fact that they'll be playing Division 3 football next year. And I would think, Tom, that they're already, and not crystal balling or anything or looking too far into the future, but I think they're already better placed for Division 3 football now. There's a residue of experience of Division 3 football will be going up. When they were in Division 3 last year, they were coming off the back of a very disappointing Division 2. Yeah. So, the whole psychology of it will be in a different. Limerick will be in a different place psychologically. They're going now into Division 3 as a winning team, as distinct from going into it the last time as a losing team.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think
they will have learned the lessons of what is required in Division 3.
Yeah, if you look, Matt, at the team, and there's maybe a fine line in some people's heads between being an experienced team and being an old team, but there's a lot of experience in that team. Ian Corbett, Tommy Childs, Peter Nash, Danny Neville, Tony McCarthy, even Josh Ryan in goals, and there's probably 3 or 4 more that are not jumping off the way. Colin McSweeney at the back, guys that they're not fledglings at this level, and they're certainly experienced enough to have played a lot of games. And I actually missed the game live. I had to watch it back, but I saw the first 90 seconds of the game, and James Lockton had kicked a point and Tony McCarthy kicked a point within, I think, 90 seconds. And I kind of said to myself, as I pulled myself away from the TV, I said, Jesus, that's a great start in Croke Park, because the last time they were there, they were underwhelming against Louth, but you settle nice and early, get your couple of scores, and we're in the fight, like we're in the battle. And from there, they were never in trouble of being swatted aside by Wexford. Always had a certain level of control on the game, albeit it was a tight game. And then I mentioned the older players, Matt, the younger players. Emmett Richter, I think we've shares at a very low level on this player, but the price is continuing to rise week on week. Mark McCarthy, a former Limerick underage hurler, now converted to the hurling or to the football, I should say. There's a couple other youngsters I'm not even thinking of here.
Peter Cotter,
yeah, and seamless.
Cormac Wolf,
Darragh O'Hagan,
Darragh O'Hagan, and Andrew Mead coming back into the squad.
Yeah, it's but I was saying my overall point is it's a lovely blend of youth and experience, and guys that have played loads and guys that are kind of just finding their feet. Yeah,
but it's absolutely fantastic the way that they have blended in with the more experienced players. And then you what Jimmy Lee has now at the moment is he has options off the bench. He has players to come in off the bench, which is fantastic.
Peter Nash again with a goal. Yeah, Peter Nash again with a goal off the bench.
Yes, absolutely.
And you never chipping in as well.
That's Nash's trademark, come up with something special.
Yeah. Oh, I was screaming at him to pass it even when I knew he scored the goal. I was watching it back. I said, "Jesus, he's going to pass it," but no need when you can finish it like that.
No. But sure, that's, as I said, is Nash's trademark. Whether it is hurling with Kildymore, football with Kildymore, football with Limerick, he always comes up with something special.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I suppose next on the agenda, I think everyone probably knows deep down Limerick will be in the Tailteann Cup because the draw from hell really in terms of Cork, and then the winners will face Kerry. But more than likely will be in the Tailteann Cup. But Cork this weekend. I know I put it to Jimmy. It was a bit of a punishment last week. He didn't see it as that in terms of a punishment, but he said we'll deal with Cork when Cork come around. And Cork are obviously only a couple of days away now. It'll be hard for Limerick to have the energy levels required to defeat what is a Division 2 team. It'll be a challenging one.
It's a bit of a David and Goliath, contest, and I suppose it crystallises the fact that the whole murmurings and of discontent that are going around about the league running straight into the championship. We're victims of it this year, but we're not the only ones. And you can see why there was a narrative there that threatened the whole integrity of the competition at one stage when one or two counties were signalling that they'd prefer to avoid the league finals.
We've enough done.
You can see why, but I think Jimmy Lee will give it a very, very good shot at the weekend. I think Limerick will give it a very good shot. It's Division 4 against Division 2. You're right. There is a gap there, but it can be done.
Yeah. Limerick showed last year to play Cork away last season, and I think they led at half time. Now there was a bit of a gale in Park Creeve the same day, but the goals they conceded that day, I suppose another, as we say, they're operating Division 4. They're probably not conceding those type of goals this year. They're defending a lot better, I think, as a team, and they seem to have a better understanding. Obviously, the rules have changed as well. But I think Limerick, given their scoring prowess so far, there's no reason why they can't put Cork under pressure. The pressure is all on Cork. There's an expectation in Cork football that they should never lose to the other four, as it were. They should never lose to Waterford, Clare, Limerick or Tipperary at senior level, and indeed under level.
You must remember that Cork will be very mindful coming to Limerick that they travelled to Clare 2 years ago and lost.
Yeah. In similar enough, I suppose I think Clare might have been a Division 3 team at the time, which kind of Limerick are, So I think
Cork will be treading very cautiously now.
Yeah. 6 p.m. start at the Gaelic ground. I suppose the big concern with Limerick is they've played the last 3 weekends, so you'd wonder, how is the bodies, how is the legs and all that, and can they rise themselves again, and can they, compete for 70 minutes? That's what they wonder.
It was good to see Danny Neville getting a bit of game time in Croke Park. He marked it with a point. If Danny is fully fit, hopefully Barry Coleman will be fully fit to face Cork. Now, Barry has had a very difficult league campaign in that, he missed, was it 4 games or 5 games?
He missed from the Tipperary game onwards, wasn't it? So was that round? Or sorry, from the Wexford game onwards. Sorry, he played the first round, I think, and that was
Wexford game onwards. I think he missed 5. Tom. And I was just wondering when Jimmy didn't bring him on Saturday for some stage how near to fit is, but he's an absolute key player, Barry Coleman. And if you had Barry Coleman and Danny Neville fully fit, at least you're going to have 2 fresh players.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I think we mentioned the bench. Limerick do you wouldn't be too worried about whatever 5 Limerick bring on. So other years maybe things were a little bit lighter there in experience, but if for example, if they went with a similar team, Peter Nash coming on, Danny Neville coming on, Barry Coleman could come on, as we say, Tygo Shukru could come on. You know what I mean? There's you wouldn't have any fears of those players adding to Limerick, as bodies start to flag and get tired, and I think that's that's the real positive we've seen in this league. They have chopped and changed when they needed to in games, and even in starting 15s as well, So I think, look, Cork are probably deservedly favourites, but I think we'll be hoping that Limerick will match them all the way or go very close to that at least. And
absolutely, and we're after getting a draw from hell for the 2nd year running.
Yeah.
And at this remove, you would have to say that we will not be competing in the Sam Maguire Cup.
Yeah, but that's I think there's no harm in that. I don't think Limerick are ready to go into a group with, a couple of Ulster teams, and I'm going to say maybe a Galway or a Mayo or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't foresee that being.
And I was reflecting on it coming back from Mallow last night, Tom. Despite our travails in the league over the last 2 years, we have done very well from a losing position in the Tailteann Cup.
Yeah.
Now this year we're going in with a different dynamic. We're going in on the back of a very impressive season.
Yeah.
And lifting silverware. So look, I suppose these games and this game on Saturday night is all that is wrong, I suppose, with the provincial system. To call a spade a spade.
Yeah. Well, to reiterate your point, if Limerick do beat Cork, which would be a great result, the prize is I think they'd have Kerry at home, but that's no prize, is it?
Well, Kerry for anyone at the moment is a booby prize. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So try and beat the 2 most successful teams in the province.
That's no disrespect. That is a compliment to the kingdom now.
Yeah, it is. It's look. It is what it is. I think performance, what you're after, can they put it up against the Division 2 team and see where they're at, and then I think whichever way it falls, the Tailteann Cup run is not beyond this team. They've been in the quarterfinals the last couple of iterations, and have they won 5 games in the Tailteann Cup in the last 2 seasons? So
and you can disregard the dead rubber game with Wicklow.
Yeah. So they won the group. They won the group the first year. Yeah, won the group the first year. With wins over Carlow and Longford, lost to Wicklow, and then really should have beaten Laois. Left that one behind them. All right, in the preliminary quarterfinal. Sorry, and then last year heavily beaten by Down, but resoundingly picked themselves up to beat Tipperary, Offaly, and London, albeit not in that order, and then lost out to Sligo. So they're certainly in the upper echelons of that competition in terms of they would be
absolutely, and as I said, they will be going into if the Tailteann Cup is that destiny, they will be going into it with a totally different dynamic from the last 2 years.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Yeah. Okay. You mentioned there. We'll move along now, Matt, to Mallow. Tuesday evening, under 20 football under 20 B Munster's football final, the John Kearns Cup. Limerick 3-14, Waterford 13 points, and Limerick retained the cup. No other county can say that, I suppose, but it's the second season of it. Limerick, as we said, I think at the very outset of this podcast, Matt, Limerick very much worthy winners. There was little doubt about it, that they were much the better team.
They were, Tom, and we saw him, you and I saw him in the first round, and we saw him again last night, and it wasn't a change, it was a transformation.
Yeah.
You know, obviously John O'Grady and his management team learned from game to game and learned considerably from the first round defeat to Tipperary, because 7 days later they travelled down to Waterford, who, mark you now, had beaten Clare in the first round in Doonbeg.
Yeah.
So it was when that Saturday that they went to Leamy Bryan, it was like going into the Lions' Den. You know, they were complete outsiders against, you know, and Waterford should be cock of the hoop. And Waterford subsequently, they lost to Limerick, and I think they ran Tipperary fairly closely. So, like this Munster B final was a repeat of last year's final. And there are a lot of parallels in it, Tom, because in last year's championship, during the group stage, Limerick only beat Waterford by a point. And they beat him double scores in the John Cairns Cup final, 2-10 to 1-5. This year, they beat Waterford by 2 points down in Dungarvan GA grounds. And like they had a 10-point victory last night, and they weren't in the slightest bit, Tom, flattered by it.
Yeah, they won by 10, Matt, but they actually conceded.
Waterford got a run where they hit 4 2-pointers in a row. Like they hit 10 points.
They hit 10 unanswered points, and yet Limerick still won convincingly. I'll tell you how much of a lead Limerick had, and how, like, Limerick went from, wasn't it 14 points ahead to back to 4.
Yeah,
and then back out again to the winning
10.
margin of the 10. Yeah, so like they just didn't play for 6-7 minutes, and Waterford, in fairness to them, kicked 4 decent 2-pointers. They kicked two 1-pointers before that as well. Like, but
now you would have to say that Joe Brennan, like, he was a very, very accomplished performer for Waterford.
Yeah.
Like he ended up last night with 10 points. He got 3 2-pointers. He got 2 of them from frees, and he got another one that he lobbed into the square and it hopped over the bar. I think the umpires were looking to the referee for direction and vice versa.
And just to clarify that rule, actually, if you do shoot from outside the arc and the ball directly goes over the bar or bounces over the bar, as it did in this case, it counts. Now, if it was touched at all by anyone, if the keeper got a nail to it, even, it would be reduced to 1. So there was a bit of confusion, because I suppose because of the way the pitches have been for the last couple of months, it hasn't happened. I don't think the ball did, take that extra bounce. Look, it counts, but it's there in black and white, like, But he carried the Waterford fight, but Limerick were much the better. Like Evan Curry, I thought was very good.
He was very good. I thought our 2 corner forwards really had the measure of their men. I thought Dermot Hynes had an excellent game as captain, and we saw him roaming all over the field, goading his players on. We saw him coming out of defence and being turned over, coming out of defence, and he's your corner forward. Shane O'Grady, I thought, had a very good game, embellished it with 3 points. But the highlight for me, Tom, of the game, and I made a point of sussing him out after to tell him, was Tommy Ryan's goal.
Yeah, well, actually, when the game was very much a game and a contest, and we didn't know who was the better team, like, he decides, someone just passed me the ball on the 45, I suppose, and he just...
At least on the 45.
Outside it when he called for it, and kind of got it on the 45, and he just put on, gave him a clean pair of heels, ghosted it around the back, and blasted it to the net. Like, it was a great goal.
The Waterford defence opened like the Red Sea.
Yeah, well, they had no chance of catching him anyway, because
they couldn't believe he was going so far, and they were leaving it to one another, and he kept going, which was the right thing to do. And when he pulled the trigger out, it was a bullet into the net.
Yeah, and that set the tone for Limerick in their first half, because they went in 2-7 to 2 points up, and kind of felt it's done. And in fairness to Waterford, as we said, battled back to 4, but Limerick went up and got that penalty and killed it off. And I suppose professionally, if you want to use that word, saw the game out, and there was a lot to like about that performance. And
Limerick were without a couple of defenders, Paddy Downey, whose leg is in a boot, as we saw there last night, and he's your team vice captain. Michael Kilbridge is injured. So, come 5-6 weeks' time, although Paddy Downey will be in a race against time, I was talking to him at before the game. if Limerick were to advance at that stage, we were talking in the hypothetical, if we get to the All-Ireland semi-final, that he'd still be in a race against time. He's more or less looking at the Ula and the championship, but Michael Kilbridge, they certainly will give extra options to John O'Grady and his management team. Very accomplished footballers.
Yeah. Do you have the date to hand, sorry, Matt? It's the 10th or the 13th of May, I think, is it, or something like that?
13th of May. I'm looking at the calendar here. The 13th of May, the 10th of May is a Saturday, Tom, which is likely. It was played on a Saturday last year. We played Westmeath in Simple Stadium.
Yeah, and I think Limerick on that occasion a bright start, but kind of faded a bit.
Yeah, I think Emmett Richter got a goal, or did he get 2 goals?
He got a goal, and I think he ended up with 2. I think he got a goal inside 2 minutes or a minute or something
2 minutes,
like that. But so look, some of those players will have the experience, I guess, have been involved in that. You'd hope. I'm not sure who the Ulster team will be. The Ulster Championship's not that long underway. I think it's only a week or two, second week of it this week. So we don't know who's going to come out of the Ulster pack, in terms of their B champion or their.
Yeah, I was complaining about it, that there was this 6-week break, but there's a valid explanation for it in that Munster have to fly out of the blocks because of the format of the Munster Championship with phase 1 feeding into phase 2.
Yeah. Now, I suppose you could have had this final kick back a little bit longer, but I suppose one of the teams was going to be exiting anyway, so I think there was probably a bit of a feeling that, let's not drag it out for 2 counties. Maybe one of them will.
When the explanation was pointed out to me, I was quite happy with it, Tom. There is validity to it, but John and his management team now have a 6-week gap. I think they were saying last night it's nearly 6 weeks.
Yeah, best part. It depends on the exact schedule, but about that, yeah. So look, they'll probably take a couple of weeks to have a break and go at it again.
They have to try and get challenge matches, and I suppose maybe challenge matches against the stronger club teams in Limerick, who will be shaping up now for the concluding stages of the league, and with one eye on July. Like July isn't a million years away now, Tom.
June, Matt. The club championships in football are scheduled for June, aren't they? So
I thought it was July. Maybe.
I think some of the early rounds are in the late days of June, as far as I know. So it's not very much anyway. Whichever date they're falling, it's not a million miles away.
No.
Might be depending on Limerick's involvement in the Tailteann Cup in a lot of cases. Yeah. But we'll see. That's the under-20s. So Ulster opposition to come. Munster under-20B winners again for 2025. So congratulations to all connected. A little bit of a reward for all their endeavours since I suppose the early winter and beyond. Matt, the Limerick ladies footballers at late, I think a late enough point up in Cavan saw them edged out by a solitary point to conclude their league stages, but I've probably been beating the drum. If you look at it in totality, they'll be happy-ish with the league, but obviously to finish it with 2 defeats, maybe not what they'd like. But Limerick competitive in every game, and we couldn't be sure maybe before if they were in Division 3 if that was possible, but they've been very much in every game, and maybe feel they didn't get enough points for their efforts.
Oh no, Tom. Limerick's tally of 7 points is it's an injustice to them, and if you indulge me for just a minute to talk you through it, definitely the first game in Mungret against Down, they should have won it. They left themselves too much to do, and when they came back, and right at the end, they had a glorious chance. Now the second round against Wexford, hands up, Wexford were the better team on the day. Then you had the win over Offaly. You had the draw against Laois, which so easily could have been converted into a win. Then you had the win over Carlow. And I saw the Louth game, Tom, and Jesus, excuse my French.
Yeah, you were very disappointed with that, and you still are, obviously.
I was very disappointed with that, and not disappointed with the performance, but disappointed that they didn't get more out of it. And then you had the performance against Cavan. If you add it all up, Tom, you could have been very, very near a league final.
Yeah.
Very, very near a league final. From the start of this year, and I've seen him 3 times, I think, in the flesh. I have noticed that they have adapted better to the higher level, because we're reflecting back on the last time that they were in Division 3, which was in 2017, and they went through it without winning a game. But there are so few players around from that squad now, that it wasn't going to be any way impactful on them. And but I thought that they played a decent kind of football, a decent football this year, and I think 7 points out of a possible 21. To me, it's not a reward for their effort, and I think they're in a good place going into the championship. Now they go into the Munster Championship first.
So when are they in action there, Matt? Give us the dates.
2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it was 3, or it said the 2 or 3 weeks from Sunday, and they're playing the Clare intermediate team. So, and of course, there's away from home.
Yeah, the other side of the channel.
Before you bother asking. Yeah, look, it'll be a further test for them. I think they beat Clare in it last year, and they certainly beat Cork in the final. I was at the Munster B final, and the Munster Championship was very, very. It's a very, very good structure, Tom. And I spoke last year about the Munster football final day, the B and the A finals, which were excellently run in Mallow, and I thought it was most enjoyable occasion, because, of course, we won silverware. But apart from that, I thought the whole nuances of the day, everything, the logistics, everything, I thought it was excellent. It was the most enjoyable day. You had band, you had everything, public address, programs, the whole lot. The boat was really pushed out. But, to get back to that place now, Limerick will have to be Clare intermediate team. And I stress intermediate team.
I think to be fair to Clare,
who featured in Division 2 of the league this year.
Yeah, to be fair to Clare, I know they've been intermediate a while, and I think they previously played in the Connacht intermediate. They were kind of in this no man's land where they were probably too strong for Limerick when Limerick a couple of years ago anyway. Now I know Limerick have probably improved, but they weren't good enough to play the likes of Kerry and Cork, so they probably kind of felt them no man's land, and Tipperary and Waterford were senior as well. So look, it'll be a good test. I think Limerick are not focused. We won't be focused on winning this competition. We focus on a real go at the junior championship. That's the ultimate aim here, really, isn't it?
It is, and they're not in the easiest of groups now. They have Louth again, they have Sligo, they have Derry, and they have Kilkenny.
Right.
There are 2 very, very tough games in there, and that's no disrespect to Derry and Kilkenny.
Yeah,
but I think very tough games against Sligo and against Louth.
Yeah, they're going to have to. Realistically, you'd imagine most teams would probably get the better. The 3 teams that are probably fancying themselves here will get the better of Derry and Kilkenny. So the results between themselves will be that'll be the telling, of who gets out of this group. Top 2 go out, I assume, again is the same.
Top 2 go out, and how important it will be. You'll have to win one of the games against the other 2 contenders.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Or a draw at the very minimum would have to be required there. Yeah. So look, we'll keep a close eye on it as things progress in the next few weeks. Matt, I don't believe we have much hurling this week. I know the minors. We'll just touch on the minors first. I know we'll come to Kamogi as well in a moment. But last week the Gaelic rounds, didn't make the game myself, but the Limerick minors. I think a lot of people saying the scoreboard flattered Cork for a finish. A decent showing by Limerick. Maybe just didn't get the goal when they needed it. Cork did, and unfortunately the under-17 campaign starts with a defeat at home.
Yeah. I think that's a summation of it, Tom, and it all happened in 30 seconds. We had a glorious opportunity at one end. Killian Begley had a shot at goal, brilliantly saved, or brilliantly deflected by the goalkeeper. It was going for the net. The full-back he whipped it off the line, came back and whipped it off the line. It was cleared down the field, and young Cormac Dean, son of the great Joe, buried it in the Limerick net. It all happened in 30 or 45 seconds. So you had a huge turnaround of 6 points. You know, at that stage, Limerick were 4 down. Had they got the goal, it would have been 1. Instead, they were 7 down. But I don't want to detract from what was a very good Cork team now.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And that gives me hope. The fact that we got 21 scores against them, and now I'm hearing, and I heard it in Mallow last night, and I think I conveyed it to you what I heard in Mallow. And as you know, Fergie McCormack is the Cork manager, and he's from Mallow. But I heard in the clubhouse last night in Mallow that Waterford are believed to be the team of all the talents. They have 14 of last year's squad.
Okay.
So we played them on Friday night.
Can I just say to you there, Matt, when the Limerick under-20s were playing Tipperary only 8 days ago, someone told me it was the best Tipperary underage team in 15 years of any description.
Yeah.
And Limerick beat them. So look, the
man from Mallow GA Club that was telling me this, and you know, he was well informed on it.
Oh, of course, I'm not denying that it can't be true, but I suppose we sometimes caution it.
I said we're going to Waterford on Friday night, hopeful of winning.
Yeah.
And he stood back and he looked at me, and I said, "Yeah, we're hopeful of winning."
Yeah. At the end of the day, Matt, it's an
we haven't a bad team, and we haven't a bad team.
No, not at all. Not a good team.
You know, but we just didn't get the run of luck on the night. Now Cork got some excellent scores. They have some really dynamic forwards, and like none more so than Cormac Dean. Like, talk of a chip in the old block, you know. Gosh, yeah, but you know, I like you're going to Waterford like myself, Tom.
Yeah.
I'm not going there on the fool's errand. I'm not going there to be beaten.
No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't be rushing down.
I think we have a chance of winning the game on Saturday and Friday night even. Yeah.
So it's a 7 p.m. start in Dungarvan for the round 2 of the Munster Minor Championship. Look, Limerick, I think at under 17 level, we kind of forget the 15 and 16-year-olds we're talking about here.
Yes.
The game in the Gaelic round last week, you know, I wouldn't say it was alien to many of them, but certainly it's not something that they're overly used to. So hopefully that experience will stand to them when they head down to Waterford on Friday, and you know, players can grow into the jersey and grow in performance. And you know, as you say, small margins, could have been a point down, and had the crowd and the momentum and all the rest of it behind them, and it just, you know, didn't transpire. So hopefully they can you know, rip up the script that has been told to us there on Friday evening.
We, as you said, Tom, rightly, we've ripped up the under-20 script already. Tipperary go to Cork this evening now under pressure.
Yes, they do indeed. Yeah. And if Cork win there, Tipperary in real peril in that group, and it was Cork and Clare. This is the under-20s now we're talking about. But Limerick under-20s, Matt, they are not in action there. This is the bye week, isn't it, for them? So
the bye week. They'll be playing Waterford on next Wednesday evening in Cratterfield.
Yeah, so we're not sure which side of the podcast it'll fall. Will it be on the same night? But I suppose just
Tom, these venues are becoming greater tongue twisters by the day now. Don't dare ask me to tell you the name of the pitch in Ennis, but I can tell you that we are going to Cappoquin Logistics Fairfield, Dungarvan. That's where we're going.
Yes, yeah. You have it. You got it in one. Yeah. Well, actually, just looking at the venues, the shortest one on the thing is 6 Mile Bridge, but you know, the rest of them are sponsored galore, long names like FBD, Simple Stadium, and Super Value Park Equive. You know, it's about time Mick Neville got a sponsor beside his name, is it, and make it.
Yeah, well, there are games down for Mick Neville Park. Oh yeah. But when we have something like Tato Mick Neville Park or something like that, you know, we will run the best of them for the longest name.
Yeah. Treaty Talk McNeville Park will throw him a few bob. Anyway, the 20s not in action until this night, which is Wednesday the 9th in Cappoquin Logistics Fairfield. So Limerick will know after this evening's round 2 clashes where they lie in the table and maybe who's going a little bit better and who isn't. Okay, Matt, that's the hurling. Obviously, we'll be looking at the Limerick game on the 20th. We'll probably no need to touch on it now, but I suppose all focus is heading to that. The Limerick team are obviously out in Portugal for the last week, preparing and hopefully fit and healthy. So I think we'll come to that in the coming weeks. Moving to Kamogi, Matt, the Kamogi, I suppose just to mention actually to tie in with that 20th date, it's been announced that the Limerick Kamogi team will form part of the curtain raiser for that senior hurling clash.
Yes.
I think it was announced as a 2 p.m. start. Limerick are playing Tipperary in the Camogie before Limerick are playing Tipperary in the hurling in FPD Semple Stadium. So
that to me, Tom, is a welcome development.
Yeah, and it's been a regular occurrence now the last few seasons, hasn't it? By the Munster Council
and it is a really welcome development, and it's a foretaste of what's going to be coming down the road after 2027 when we hopefully will have full integration.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, it's and great for the ladies. I suppose they've been playing all over the country and all over the county and most of the time, and to get that big exposure in what people will call the home of hurling in Thurles. So it's it's good for them, and it should hopefully they'll give a good outing again, a good showing against I suppose what is a strong Tipperary senior Camogie side. Matt, the minor Camogie side know their opponents. They don't know the venue. They do know the base.
Opponents, Tom, and I'm a small bit worried, Tom. They're playing Kilkenny. Right. Cork are playing Tipperary. Cork finished top of the group, and the venue is a Cork venue. It's Castle Road, as far as I know.
Okay.
The Limerick venue is to be confirmed, Matthew. It's on Saturday week at 2:00, and I confidently expect that it will be a Limerick venue.
Well, it should be, shouldn't it, by your logic there,
if Cork go direct to the semi-final and enjoy home venue, Limerick should enjoy the same thing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it's Saturday, remind me the date?
Saturday the 12th.
Saturday the 12th, okay, All Ireland Minor. Yeah.
At 2 p.m.
Yeah, and I see here on the Camogie website, Cork versus Tipperary is at the same time in a venue which is down as Cork Camogie 1 now. I think that is...
But that's Castle Road.
Castle Road, yeah. So, and they have a referee and all, whereas the Limerick game, no venue, no ref.
Yes.
TBC is doing both.
Well, now I'm as far as I'm concerned, the jury is out on it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what comes out in the watch.
Tom, if it isn't a Limerick venue.
Yeah. Well, I suppose hopefully they're working in the background to resolve that and get the venue confirmed.
That's what I'm imagining. I'm imagining that Limerick are, liaising with Limerick GA at the moment to see what's available and where the pitch will be.
Yeah, very good. Okay, I think we'll look at that fixture in greater depth next week. But obviously, Limerick won their 3 group games, had a bit of a break. I know they were preparing diligently with a challenge game or 2 in between as well. So just trying to sharpen themselves for this big semi-final against Kilkenny. Just to mention, Matt, the under-16s fixtures just to hand this evening. The under-16A will face Cork in Castle Road this Sunday at 2 p.m. And a day earlier on Saturday in Kilmallock, the under-16Bs will line out against Waterford. So
the under-16As are out of the championship. They've relinquished their title, Tom. So, and if you were looking for something on the last day of the season, like Castle Road isn't the ideal place to be going.
No, it's not. But look, they can put a bit of pride back into themselves with a result there, or indeed a performance. I'm sure that's what the management are looking for the ladies. Okay, Matt, anything else AOB for you this evening?
No.
We've it all covered there, I hope. I hope you do indeed. Yeah.
We're as happy as Larry. Two football trophies.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Yeah.
Best of luck to Jimmy and the boys at the weekend. Best of luck to Donald and the lads on Saturday and Friday evening. Yeah,
that's it. And hopefully we'll be smiling coming into episode 324 next week. That's the plan.
In case we don't have the podcast before next Wednesday, best of luck to Evan and the lads.
That's it.
And Gavin also.
Absolutely. Okay, folks, thanks very much. Thanks indeed to Joe earlier, and thanks to you, Matt, for joining us on this week's Treat